Hello, my name is Matthew Reichertz. I am the instructor for Painting at Home, the first section of it. Some of you will be enrolled in PNTG 1501, and some of you will be enrolled in PNTG 2001. We designed this course to be half of the normal experience you would have in intro painting. The reason for this is that intro painting also involves oil paint, and there are solvents involved with oil paint that we didn't think were safe to be using in confined spaces. So this course focuses on acrylic paint, and it's a 3-credit course. The normal intro experience at NASCAD is a 6-credit course. We will be offering another 3-credit oil painting introductory course that will be required, and then both this course and that intro oil painting course will be the equivalent of the normal introductory painting experience that you would have at NASCAD. We are here in my studio in the north end of Halifax. I have been filming some of the demos you will see in this studio. Some of them were also filmed in one of the studios at NASCAD. Let me give you a quick tour of my studio and then tell you a little something about myself. I have one small window in my studio. I share this space with a few other people. That's a painting that I'm working on for an exhibition that should be happening in next September or October. There's another painting that I'm working on for that show. Another one's over there. This is a template for another large painting for that show. And then behind this easel is one more painting for that exhibition. And we're back to the window. I have a large painting surface that's made out of map drawers. That's on wheels. I can push it around. It's very heavy. It's also quite high, which is okay for me because I'm kind of tall. It's a little bit of a mess. You should never be as messy as your teachers are. Got a nice drawer full of paint in here. These are oil paints and also acrylics, which are in this cabinet right over here. Also got assortments of brushes and other painting tools and some spray paints as well. And this is a years-long project where I've slowly built a mountain out of my old paint. I like making tools for things, tools for painting. This structure here is a channel upon which things can be moved and locked. So, and then I've got a metal wall that I can hold it onto with magnets. I paint on a surface called polystyrene, which I also hold onto the wall with strong rare earth magnets. So I actually have lots of metal walls that I've installed on my studio so that the magnets can hold everything up there. I've got a big long metal wall. I don't know if you can see the top of it as it moves along there. That's a painted metal wall. There's another unpainted wall. Over there is another series of metal walls and then some metals holding up that painting there. That's a quick look at my studio. Different art programs teach introductory painting courses differently. At NASCAD, we focus on observational painting. In my opinion, the focus on observational painting is a good one because it's very complex. You have to understand the materials, you have to understand your tools, you have to understand how you see and perceive the world, and you have to understand how others see and perceive paintings and images. And having to deal with all of that complexity establishes a deep relationship with the medium. And I think that that kind of deep relationship is really important to making art. You don't have to have it with paint. You could have it with ceramics and clay. You could have it with wood and woodworking. You could have it with your video camera, but establishing a complex, deep relationship with the media, I think, is really important to being an artist. So I look forward to talking to you about all of the various aspects of painting: safety, materials, tools, how to make something look like what it is you're looking at, the relationship between what you're looking at as inspiration and what actually happens on your painting. And also about maybe why we paint today, or what it means to paint today. Painting as an idea has changed over a long period of time. And we think sometimes about the word progress in association with those changes. I'm not sure that's the right word, but certainly our ideas about painting have changed, for instance, since the early Renaissance all the way up to now. But interestingly, if you look at portraiture goes back much further than the Renaissance. And if you look at, for example, Egyptian portrait busts and portraits on their wooden encaustic portraits for grave markers, there's an incredible sense of skill in the way that the subject was captured in those paintings that has nothing to do with a sense of progression through time. And so, on one hand, portraiture is a good example of the fact that we as people have been trying to mimic visual experience for many years, centuries in fact. Look at the wonderful likenesses that the artist achieved in these funereal portraits from Egypt about 200 to 300 BCE. On the other hand, the way that painters through history have played with ideas about representation all the way up to abstraction are an example of the way that we try to find something new or something timely about what we're making as artists. Stop. Hold on 1 second. If I was a student listening to the professor speak at the moment, I would not understand what they were saying. So let me try to explain briefly. What I'm saying about portraiture is that our goals when it comes to representing somebody have not changed very much for a very long time. If we look here at these images, on the left there's a good example of the mummy portrait. Those are like the portraits that you saw earlier. They were often found on top of a casket, the way you're seeing them there. That's from the 3rd century BCE. Then we've got a portrait of the head of a young woman from the 2nd century BCE. A Roman statue of a judge from 425 CE, and then jumping forward through time from the 8th century, a Japanese sculpture of a monk. All of them clearly are trying to capture a likeness. Jumping ahead 2 centuries, there's a portrait of a Chinese emperor. Then jumping ahead another few centuries is a self-portrait by Peter Parler, a sculptor and an architect. Jumping ahead another 2 centuries is a portrait of a gentleman by Ghirlandaio, and a century and a little bit later is a portrait of Isabel Bourbon by Peter Paul Rubens. All of them doing their best to capture a likeness. Jumping forward again to the 20th century is a portrait of a boy by George Bellows, and then jumping ahead into the 21st century are the portraits of Barack Obama by Kehinde Wiley and Michelle Obama by Amy Sherald. Again, all doing their very best to capture a likeness. On the other hand is a history of painting that addresses ideas about representation. So these are objects that deliberately are different from what has come before. On the left you have Courbet's Stonebreakers from 1849. It seems like a fairly mundane image, but at the time showing 2 laborers working, one a young boy and another one a man doing hard labor, was not the kind of image that you would expect. I have also heard that Courbet in this particular painting actually mixed sand into the paint, which had to do with trying to portray or get across the gritty reality of the image that he was making. Then 50 years later, things have changed, and Matisse makes La Femme au Chapeau. Matisse, at this point, was part of the Fauves, who used vibrant colors and strong brushwork to represent things. Just a few years later, Juan Gris paints this portrait of Picasso in 1912, which is an ode to the cubism that Picasso and Braque developed together about 10 years earlier. And on the right, around the same time, is Fernand Léger, who tried to make paintings that related to the modern experience at that time, which had much to do with things speeding up and factories being built and that kind of modern development. 30 years later, the abstraction that began in France took even more radical forms in the United States, where Barnett Newman made this painting called One Mint One, where he first developed what he called the zip in his paintings, which is the line, in this case, going down the center of the painting. Newman and many other abstract expressionists experimented incredibly with ideas about abstraction that allowed for somebody like Alma Thomas in 1970 to play with ideas about abstraction as she actually represented something that happened, the Apollo 12 splashdown. So, in a sense, this is a history painting made with abstract means. The fact that portraiture does not seem to change its goals very much through the ages versus the fast pace of changes in painting that we see in modern art is what I was getting at. So, as we talk about the basics of learning how to paint, we'll also try to address some of the ideas behind um, the long history of painting and how they might apply to our experience as artists today.